My name is Mia, and I'm 32 years old. If you'd asked me a week ago what my greatest fear was, I probably would have said something mundane, like public speaking or heights. But now it's the echo of my brother's voice, cold and sharp, cutting through the silence of the funeral parlor, twisting itself around a phrase that still makes my stomach clench. You don't deserve a dime of Dad's money, Mia. Nothing. He'd said it right after the service, before the mourners had even dispersed, his eyes like chips of ice, burning holes into my very soul. The air in that stuffy room, thick with the scent of lilies and unspoken grief, had suddenly felt too heavy to breathe. I remember gripping the armrest of the ornate chair, the velvet ruff beneath my fingers, as Mark leaned in, his whisper a venomous hiss meant only for me. He told me himself, Mia, you were never his priority. Never. My father, bless his kind, complicated heart, had only been gone for 3 days, and already the vultures were circling. Mark, my older brother, had always been competitive, but this felt like a new low, a deliberate act of emotional cruelty designed to wound me when I was most vulnerable. The claim itself felt like a violation, staining the memory of a man I loved fiercely. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, whose face was as creased as the legal documents he carried, finally cleared his throat. His office, usually a bastion of hushed neutrality, felt charged with electric tension. Sunlight, filtered through dust motes, illuminated the ancient oak desk, upon which lay a thick envelope. My father's last will and testament. My pulse hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Mark sat across from me, a smug, expectant smirk playing on his lips, convinced of his victory. I could feel the weight of his certainty, pressing down, making it hard to think, hard to believe my father could have cut me out so completely. Every nerve ending felt alive, anticipating the devastating pronouncement that would validate Mark's cruel words. Mr. Henderson began to speak. Mr. Henderson's voice, a low rumble at first, slowly gained clarity, each word landing with the weight of granite. He adjusted his spectacles, the reflection of the office window glinting off the lenses, obscuring his eyes. My deepest condolences again to both of you on the passing of Mr. David Thorne. He paused, a short, respectful silence filling the room before he continued, his tone shifting to one of professional gravity. We are here today to discuss Mr. Thorne's last will and testament, dated October 12th of last year. My palms were sweating, a cold, clammy feeling that spread up my arms. Mark shifted in his seat, a subtle rustle of expensive fabric, and I could feel his eyes on me, heavy with expectation. He was practically vibrating with anticipation, convinced that his moment of triumph was at hand. I forced myself to look at Mr. Henderson, willing my face to remain impassive, but inside, a storm was brewing. Every fiber of my being screamed for this to be over, for the axe to fall, whatever its judgment. The lawyer cleared his throat again, a nervous habit, and picked up the thick cream-colored envelope, sliding a neatly folded document from within. The will stipulates, Mr. Henderson began, his gaze now fixed on the page, that all of Mr. David Thorne's assets, property, and financial holdings are to be divided equally between his 2 children, Mr. Mark Thorne and Ms. Mia Thorne. A gasp escaped my lips, a soft, involuntary sound that seemed to shatter the stillness. My brother, across the table, froze, his smug expression instantly replaced by one of absolute, stunned disbelief. His jaw literally dropped, hanging open like a marionette with a cut string. The air crackled. "Equal parts?" Mark finally sputtered, his voice cracking, a high-pitched squeak completely devoid of its earlier confidence. He pushed himself forward, leaning over the table, his face a mask of furious crimson. "That's impossible! Mia, you heard me. Dad told me, he promised me, that she wouldn't get anything substantial. Not after everything." His eyes darted to me, blazing with a raw, unadulterated fury that made my breath catch. He looked as if he wanted to tear the document right out of Mr. Henderson's hands. A small, almost imperceptible tremor ran through Mr. Henderson's hand as he adjusted his grip on the will. He met Mark's enraged stare with a calm, steady gaze. "Mr. Thorne, the document is quite explicit. It clearly outlines a 50-50 division. Your father's wishes are unequivocal." The words hung in the air, a definitive pronouncement. A slow, unfamiliar warmth began to spread through my chest, chasing away the icy dread that had settled there since Mark's cruel declaration. It wasn't just about the money. It was about vindication, about a father's love confirmed. Unequivocal? Mark scoffed, pushing his chair back with a grating screech that scraped across the polished floor. He stood up, towering over the table, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Are you saying my father lied to me? That he just decided to pretend all our conversations never happened? This is a joke. A cruel, sick joke. His voice was rising now, losing all pretense of composure, a raw, wounded bellow that bounced off the muted walls of the lawyer's office. He turned his incandescent rage directly on me. Mia, what did you do? He snarled, his eyes narrowing to slits. Did you manipulate him? Did you sweet-talk him into this at the last minute? You know how easily swayed he was by your sob stories. His accusations stung, a familiar pattern of blame and dismissal that had haunted our relationship for years. Yet, for the first time, his words held no power over me. The truth, in Mr. Henderson's calm voice, was a shield, deflecting his venom. I simply stared back, a quiet resolve hardening my features. Mr. Henderson, though outwardly calm, placed a hand flat on the desk, a silent signal of control. Mr. Thorne, please, compose yourself. These are your father's final wishes. They are legally binding. His voice, though still quiet, held an underlying firmness that brooked no argument. It was clear he was not accustomed to such outbursts in his professional sanctuary. A tense silence followed, broken only by Mark's ragged breathing, his chest heaving with frustrated anger. I looked down at my hands, still clasped tightly in my lap, feeling a peculiar mix of relief and a strange, almost unsettling sadness. This inheritance wasn't just about money. It was about a final, profound affirmation from my father. It was his way of telling me, unequivocally, that I was deserving, that I was his priority, despite what Mark had tried so cruelly to make me believe. The emotional weight of that realization settled over me, heavy and profoundly bittersweet. His words, sharp and laced with betrayal, landed on me with surprising little impact. The old Mia, the one who withered under his every criticism, might have crumbled, but this new revelation, this profound gesture from Dad, had solidified something inside me. I didn't do anything, Mark, I finally said, my voice quiet but steady, meeting his furious gaze without flinching. This is Dad's will. Not mine. My gaze flickered to Mr. Henderson, who remained impassive, his silence a testament to his professionalism amidst the chaos. The air, still thick with unspoken animosity, seemed to vibrate with Mark's suppressed fury. Don't give me that innocent act, Mark roared, slamming his fist onto the polished desk, the sudden jarring sound echoing through the solemn office. A small, expensive-looking pen jumped and rolled to the edge, threatening to fall. He told me. He explicitly said you were irresponsible, that you couldn't manage money. He said he'd made provisions, special provisions, for you, not this outright equal split. There has to be a mistake, a codicil, something you've hidden. His face was blotchy, a furious red that spread from his neck to his forehead, veins throbbing at his temples. He looked utterly unhinged, trapped in a reality that defied his deepest expectations. Mr. Henderson calmly picked up the rolling pen, placing it precisely back in its holder. His movements were slow, deliberate, a stark contrast to Mark's volatile energy. Mr. Thorne, there are no codicils, no hidden clauses. This is the latest and only valid document. Your father's intent is clear. He gestured to the open will. It was drafted and signed by him, witnessed correctly, and his mental capacity at the time was sound. We had several conversations leading up to this final draft. The lawyer's steady voice, though devoid of emotion, carried the weight of irrefutable legal truth. A bitter laugh escaped Mark's lips, devoid of humor. Conversations? What conversations? He barely spoke to me for months after our last argument, and then suddenly he's making a will, giving everything away to someone he supposedly didn't trust? It makes no sense. He paced a few steps, his expensive shoes scuffing the floor, a restless, caged animal. My heart ached, Not for him, but for the broken image of our family, shattered into pieces by years of Mark's resentment and Dad's quiet attempts to bridge the growing chasm between us. Perhaps, Mr. Thorne, Mr. Henderson interjected softly, his voice cutting through Mark's aggrieved monologue. Your father had a change of heart, or a different perspective on what provisions meant for his children. He explicitly stated his desire for fairness, and for both of you to be secure. His exact words were, "My children should stand on equal ground, even if they sometimes forget how to walk together." The lawyer's gaze briefly met mine, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, perhaps a shared understanding of the painful family dynamics that had just been laid bare. Mark halted his pacing, his eyes wide with a sudden dawning comprehension mixed with outrage. Walk together? He said that? So this is about me, isn't it? He's punishing me, because I challenged him, because I dared to disagree with his favoritism towards you. He pointed a finger at me, trembling with indignation. The raw accusation hung in the air, thick and suffocating, laying bare the deep-seated sibling rivalry that had festered between us for decades, finally erupting into an ugly public spectacle. I could only watch, a silent witness to his unraveling. Mark's accusation hung in the air, heavy with the bitter scent of old wounds. My father punishing him? Favoritism towards me? This wasn't a new narrative. Mark had spun it expertly for years. A knot tightened in my stomach, remembering countless childhood arguments where Mark always portrayed himself as the wronged party, leaving me to feel like the demanding sister. His anger seemed to feed on itself. Punishing you? I finally echoed, my voice soft, cutting through his fury. Is that what you truly believe, Mark? That Dad in his final act would be so petty? Or is it that he just saw things clearly, for once? The words were out, a rare defiance sparked by the injustice of his claims. His face contorted, a dark storm brewing in his eyes, disbelief warring with rage. My influence? He scoffed, throwing his hands up. You always were his little angel, Mia, the one who could do no wrong. While I was out there building his business, taking calls, where were you, chasing artistic dreams that never paid a dime? And now you expect me to believe he just forgot all that? Rewarded your aimless existence with half his fortune? His voice rose, echoing off the high ceilings. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, a sharp, decisive sound that seized Mark's attention. Mr. Thorne, your father made no distinction based on career paths or perceived worthiness. His words were about equality, ensuring both his children had a foundation for their futures. He expressed deep admiration for both your unique strengths and explicitly wanted to avoid further strife between you after his passing. Strife? Mark barked a laugh, harsh and humorless. This is strife, mister. Henderson! He knew how much work I put in. He built the company after he pulled back. He relied on me. He can't just turn his back on that, not now. His fists clenched, white-knuckled, as he slammed them down on the desk again, rattling the room's fragile peace. He looked genuinely hurt, his pain deeply entangled with his entitlement. I watched him, a strange pity warring with my anger. He truly believed he was owed more. Dad never turned his back on you, Mark, I said, my voice steady. He wanted us to be a family. He wanted us to share. Share what, Mia? Your delusions? He sneered, leaning across the desk, his face inches from mine. His breath, hot and stale, washed over me. He wanted to protect you. He always said you were too naive. This is a setup. You manipulated him, didn't you? You got him to change it, probably when he was weakest. His bloodshot eyes searched mine. The accusation, though familiar, still stung. I met his gaze, refusing to break eye contact. I didn't manipulate him, Mark. I loved him, and he loved me, just like he loved you. This isn't about who he loved more, or who deserved what. It's about his final wish for us to be whole. My voice held a quiet strength, born of a deep, sorrowful understanding. Mr. Henderson interrupted, his tone firm. Mr. Thorne, your father's will was drafted with full legal oversight and his complete consent. Any insinuation of manipulation is unfounded and, frankly, offensive. His mental faculties were sharp, and his decisions clear. The lawyer's words were a solid wall, deflecting Mark's onslaught. The air thickened, palpable tension as Mark simmered, trapped by his outrage and the lawyer's irrefutable authority. Mark finally slumped back into his chair, defeated, his chest heaving. His bluster had evaporated, replaced by raw, wounded exhaustion. He glared at the will, a personal betrayal. The quiet hum of the air conditioning seemed deafening in the stillness, a stark contrast to the storm that had just raged. This was the vulnerable Mark, truly believing he was being wronged. The quiet hum of the air conditioning seemed deafening in the stillness, a stark contrast to the storm that had just raged. Mark had slumped back into his chair, defeated, his chest heaving, but the tension in the room remained, a palpable, almost suffocating presence. This wasn't surrender, it was a regrouping. I knew him too well. His eyes, though momentarily devoid of their earlier fire, still held a cold, calculating glint as they scanned the document on the desk, searching, always searching, for an angle, a weakness. I found myself holding my breath, waiting for the inevitable resurgence of his anger, or perhaps a different tactic. The relief of the equal inheritance was immense, a warm blanket against the chill of his accusations, but it was overshadowed by the deep sadness of seeing our family torn apart, laid bare in this sterile office. My father had wanted us to walk together, and here we were, unable to even sit in the same room without open hostility. Mr. Henderson, ever the picture of professional calm, finally broke the silence. He picked up the will again, turning a page. Mr. Thorne, I understand this might be difficult to process, given your previous conversations with your father. However, it's imperative to understand that this final document reflects a very clear and deliberate shift in his intentions. He specifically articulated his desire for this equal division, citing his profound belief in the intrinsic value and equal worth of both his children. Mark's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. A shift? What kind of shift? And what intrinsic value are we talking about, Mr. Henderson? I've been running his company for 5 years, making it profitable while Mia here was experimenting with pottery. His voice was low, laced with contempt, but the edge of desperation was undeniable. He was trying to regain control of the narrative, to discredit me through my life choices. It's not about professional achievements, Mr. Thorne, Mr. Henderson stated, his voice unwavering. It's about family. Your father spoke at length about wanting to provide both of you with security, regardless of your chosen paths. He also expressed a deep regret about certain historical disagreements and hoped this would be a step towards healing, not deepening, any divides. He paused, his gaze resting briefly on Mark, then on me. Healing? The word felt like a cruel joke in the face of Mark's barely contained fury. I felt a familiar pang of resentment. He had always dismissed my creative pursuits as childish whims, something insignificant compared to his corporate climb. The unspoken message was always clear. I was less, I contributed less, I deserved less. My father's will was a direct rebuttal to that lifelong narrative. Healing? Mark scoffed, the sound sharp and disbelieving. This isn't healing, it's a slap in the face. He knew my contributions. He knew what I sacrificed for the business. What about the specific promises he made to me? The expansion plans we discussed? The succession he outlined for me? He leaned forward, his hands flat on the desk, his knuckles white. Your father did discuss those matters with you, Mr. Thorne, and he held your business acumen in high regard, Mr. Henderson acknowledged, his tone measured. However, his final disposition was clear. He wanted to ensure that both his children were equally empowered to pursue their futures, whatever those might be. He believed this equality would foster mutual respect, and not, as you suggest, be a form of punishment. The implication hung in the air, that Mark was seeing this as punishment because he couldn't conceive of his father loving us equally, without merit-based favoritism. It was a mirror reflecting his own insecurities, his need to always be number one. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. This wasn't about money anymore, not really. It was about the ghosts of our past, finally materializing in the form of a legal document, demanding to be addressed. The implication hung in the air. Mark saw this as punishment, unable to grasp equal love. This wasn't about money, it was our fractured past, demanding to be addressed. Mark shook his head, jaw twitching. This is a betrayal, he muttered, voice hoarse, profound hurt lacing it. He talked about my future, the company, not healing with money. This is a fabrication, or he was coerced. He scanned our faces for conspiracy. His desperate need to rationalize was pitiful. I felt a sudden pang of compassion for my brother. Dad didn't lose his mind, Mark, I said softly, conviction steady. He was clearer than he'd been. If he spoke of healing, he intended it. Silence thickened with our shared history. Mr. Henderson leaned forward, grave expression. Mr. Thorne, your father anticipated this difficulty. He included a personal letter, sealed, to be read after the main provisions. He requested I present it now. He reached for a cream-colored envelope. A chill ran down my spine. A letter? Father, rarely emotional, chose this intimate way. Mark deflated, shoulders slumping, fear or shame flickering. The room shifted, from legal dispute to deeply personal. A letter? Mark whispered, all fight gone. He watched, mesmerized, as the lawyer broke the family crest seal and unfolded paper. This wasn't legal. It was Dad's voice, a final echo. Mr. Henderson began to read, voice softer, channeling my father. My dearest Mark, my beloved Mia, he started, and my eyes welled. If you are hearing this, then I am no longer with you in body, but I pray my spirit, and especially my love, remains. I know this division of my estate may surprise one of you, and perhaps bring relief to the other. But my intention, above all, was for peace. Mark flinched, visibly trembling. His gaze flickered to me, raw vulnerability. Dad's words stripped his defenses, revealing the wounded child. The lawyer continued, voice steady. Mark, my son, you have carried a great burden for this family and business. Your dedication has been pride. But you always felt the need to prove yourself worthy of my legacy. That was never necessary. My love for you was always unconditional, not tied to your successes, but to the strong, capable man you became. Tears streamed down my face. Father had seen Mark's struggle, his relentless drive for validation. Silence was absolute, broken only by my ragged breathing. Mark sat motionless, pale, absorbing every word of his father's testament. Mr. Henderson paused, his voice thick with unexpressed emotion, the silence stretching tautly between us. Mark's head was bowed, his shoulders still trembling, the earlier rage seemingly evaporated, replaced by a profound, raw vulnerability that made my own heart ache. It was as if Dad's words had finally broken through decades of his carefully constructed armor, reaching the terrified little boy beneath. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and ragged, the only sound apart from the distant hum of the office. Then Mr. Henderson continued, his gaze finding mine, the soft, melancholic cadence of his voice carrying my father's essence into the sterile room. And Mia, my sweet girl, you often felt misunderstood, didn't you? Your path was different, less conventional in the eyes of the world, but no less significant in mine. You brought light and creativity into my life, a joy that grounded me. I know you sometimes questioned your worth, especially when your brother's ambitions overshadowed your quiet strength. But please know, my dear, your value was never in what you did, but in who you were, my thoughtful, compassionate daughter. Tears flowed freely down my cheeks now, blurring Mr. Henderson's kind face. It was as if Dad was right there, whispering those words directly into my soul. He had seen me, truly seen me, through all the years of feeling overshadowed and dismissed, not just by Mark, but sometimes by my own doubts. The weight of all those unspoken insecurities lifted, replaced by a profound, bittersweet sense of being cherished, understood, and truly loved. It wasn't just about the will, it was about a lifetime of silent affirmations finally voiced aloud. I saw the tension that grew between you both, the lawyer read on, his voice gaining a reflective tone, the unspoken words, the lingering resentments, and I regret not doing more to bridge that gap when I was alive. This will, therefore, is not just about material division. It is my final, earnest plea for you to remember your bond as siblings, to find a way back to each other, not as competitors, but as family. The true inheritance is not the money, but the relationship you share, the one I hope you can still reclaim. Mark slowly raised his head. His eyes, red-rimmed and glistening, met mine across the table. All the fury had drained from his face, leaving behind a stark, almost childlike confusion and pain. His lips parted, as if to speak, but no sound came out. It was a rare, unguarded moment, exposing the deep hurt that had festered within him, perhaps even longer than I knew. My father's words, a gentle yet firm rebuke, had pierced him to the core. I have loved you both differently, yes, for you are different individuals, Mr. Henderson continued, his voice soft yet unwavering. But my love for each of you was always whole, always complete. Do not let material things overshadow the intangible, priceless gift of family. Mia, protect your gentle spirit. Mark, learn to let go of the need to always prove yourself. Find peace, together, and honor my memory by honoring each other. The letter concluded there. Mr. Henderson carefully folded the paper, his hands steady despite the emotional tremors in the room. He placed it back into the cream-colored envelope, sealing it with a quiet reverence. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with the weight of my father's final words, a silence that resonated far more deeply than any argument. Mark simply stared at the envelope, his face a canvas of disbelief, sorrow, and a dawning, terrible realization. The silence in the room stretched, thick and profound, a chasm of unspoken emotions far more potent than any of Mark's earlier roars. He remained motionless, his gaze fixed on the cream-colored envelope, as if seeking hidden truths within its simple folds. The anger had completely drained from his face, leaving it strangely hollow, etched with a raw, undeniable sorrow. It was a look I rarely saw, a vulnerability he guarded fiercely, and in that moment, for the first time in years, I saw not the older brother who constantly sought to diminish me, but the frightened boy who had always craved our father's approval, always felt he had to earn it. My own heart ached with a deep, pervasive sadness. My father's letter, a final tender act of communication, had laid bare the complex tapestry of our family, the unspoken pains, the desperate yearnings, the love that had been so often misunderstood. He had seen us, truly seen us, in all our flawed humanity, and in his death, he had given us the one thing he couldn't fully give in life, an honest mirror. The air conditioning hummed, a gentle rhythmic whisper against the stark quiet, a counterpoint to the tumult of emotions that had just been unleashed. Mark, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, hesitant, uncertain of how to approach this raw, exposed version of him. I reached across the table, my hand instinctively extending, then pulling back. What could I say? What words could bridge a lifetime of resentment and misunderstanding, especially now, when our father's final wishes had been revealed? He didn't acknowledge me, his eyes still fixed on the letter, lost in a world only he could see, processing a truth he had vehemently denied just moments before. Mr. Henderson, with a quiet sigh, finally broke the spell. Mr. Thorne, Ms. Thorne, are there any further questions regarding the will or its provisions? His voice was gentle, almost empathetic, as if he too felt the lingering weight of my father's poignant words. He seemed to understand that the legalities were now secondary to the deeply personal revelations that had just unfolded, the true inheritance that transcended material wealth. Mark finally stirred, a slow, almost painful movement. He looked up, his eyes meeting Mr. Henderson's, then flickering to mine. They were still red, still glistening, but the fury had been replaced by a vacant ache, a confusion that spoke volumes. He always told me, Mark started, his voice rough, barely audible, that he was building this for me, that I was the successor, that my hard work would be rewarded. With everything. His words trailed off, a broken echo of a long-held belief. He valued your hard work immensely, Mark, Mr. Henderson replied, his tone compassionate. And he respected your dedication to the business. His letter confirms that. But he also wanted to ensure that his legacy was one of fairness and family unity, not just financial succession. The lawyer's phrasing was careful, precise, balancing truth with tenderness. He knew how fragile this moment was, how easily it could shatter. My gaze softened as I looked at Mark. He genuinely believed he had been promised something more, something exclusive. His world, built on a foundation of perceived merit and sole proprietorship, had just crumbled. "He loved you, Mark," I said again, my voice stronger now, driven by a deep, undeniable empathy. "He saw your struggles, your burdens. He saw how much you tried to prove yourself." He finally looked at me, a direct, unfiltered gaze, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the little boy who used to protect me on the playground, the brother before the ambition and the resentment took hold. You think he really meant that? About not needing to prove myself?" His voice cracked, a fragile sound that spoke of a lifetime of internal battles. The question was raw, stripped bare of all his usual bravado. "I know he meant it," I affirmed, my voice unwavering. "He was always proud of you, Mark. Fiercely proud. But he wanted you to know that his love wasn't contingent on it." The words hung in the air, resonating with the finality of our father's testament. This conversation wasn't just about the will, it was about the complex, often fractured bond we shared, now illuminated by our father's parting wisdom. It was a chance, perhaps, to finally begin to heal. "I know he meant it," I affirmed, voice unwavering, clinging to the profound truth our father delivered. Mark's red-rimmed eyes met mine, no longer angry but bewildered. He didn't speak, just a slow, imperceptible nod, a minuscule movement holding a lifetime's weight. It wasn't an apology, nor reconciliation, but a crack in his armor, a whisper of understanding. The silence that followed was heavy with catharsis, resonant with Dad's quiet wisdom. Mr. Henderson, with practiced grace, closed the will. "If no further questions, the formal reading is concluded," he stated, his voice gentle. Mark rose, stiff, aged by his father's words. He didn't look back, his swagger gone, replaced by a hesitant shuffle as he exited. The door clicked shut, leaving Mr. Henderson and me in the profound quiet. The room, a battleground moments ago, now felt strangely empty, yet infused with peace. Sunlight illuminated the polished oak desk, highlighting the slight indentation where Mark's fist had struck, a physical scar of our storm. Mr. Henderson offered a soft smile. "Your father was a wise man, Mia. He loved you both deeply." His words, a gentle confirmation, solidified everything. I finally pushed myself up, my legs light. The years of Mark's accusations eased. The weight wasn't gone, but transformed, a testament to a father's enduring love. His presence lingered in the quiet office. The true inheritance wasn't money, but his heart's revelation, a priceless gift. It was the whisper that love sees past failures, embracing our messy truth. And perhaps a fragile seed of a new beginning for my brother and me, a chance to walk together, not in competition, but in shared memory and hope.